All right, we are live for another edition of Cigar and a Beverage. Brought to you, as always, by my drink of choice, and it's beer tonight. It is beer tonight out of a can called Mississippi Blonde from a brewery out of Vicksburg, Mississippi. So we want to thank our friends at, was it Key City? I think that's what, yep, Key City Brewing in Vicksburg, Mississippi for our beer tonight. Lots to go over with college football on the horizon here for Saturday. We got games tomorrow in the world of college football. And let's take a look at what games we've got on tap tomorrow before we get into the full SEC slate. As always, you can follow us on TikTok at Cigar Bev Nola. That's at Cigar Bev Nola on TikTok, as well as Venmoing me at Paul-Wonder-1 on Venmo. And all proceeds to this show, to that Venmo, will go directly back into the production of this program. And can't wait to see those donations coming in. I hope they do come in because I've got some ideas. Can't release those ideas right now, but I've got some ideas. We're also going to have a guest with us tonight, and hopefully he does come on. Chris Gerard, my best friend, and a part-time contributor to this program will be joining us tonight. At least that's what he told me. No promises. But let's see what happens. He does have a 15-month-old that he's taking care of, though. So we'll see. Anybody that's viewing this program, feel free to click the link associated with this post and join me. Join me on the program. Would love to have you on here. Okay, so some games that are going to be going on Friday. Nebraska travels to Piscataway, New Jersey to take on Rutgers. The Cornhuskers are a 3-point favorite on the road against Rutgers. Nebraska 2-3 on the year. They are 1-1 in the Big Ten. Rutgers 3-2 on the year, 0-2 in the Big Ten. So we'll see. That one is going to be on FS1 from SHI Stadium in Piscataway, New Jersey, where the forecast is calling for mist. Am I reading that right? Mist and 56 degrees. So we'll see how that one goes. The last time these two teams played, December the 18th of 2020, Nebraska was a 28-21 winner over the Scarlet Knights. Houston and Memphis in American Athletic Conference rivalry. Houston struggling this year, 2-3 on the year. Memphis 4-1 on year. This one's going to be played in the Liberty Bowl. You can catch this one on ESPN2 tomorrow night. Clear at 64 degrees. Last time these two teams played, November 19th of last season, where Houston won 31-13. UNLV, Memphis is a 2.5-point favorite in this one. UNLV and San Jose State gonna do battle at 9:30 Central Time kickoff from San Jose. Clear at 75 degrees tomorrow night in San Jose, California, and also at 9:30 Nevada and Colorado State in what looks to be a Mountain West showdown from McKay Stadium in Reno. Clear and 77 degrees for this battle. Right now, Nevada is a 3-point favorite. Over under 44 and a half. 44 and a half. It dropped from 45 and a half. 44, actually. 44 on this one. Before Chris comes on, let's go through some college football news at this hour. Bryce Young looks to be a game-time decision against Texas A&M. We'll be previewing this game here tonight as well. And Coach Dick Saban said he won't know until Saturday whether quarterback Bryce Young will be good to go against Texas A&M. Bryce has been practicing all week, and he's saying that he can play. So they're gonna look and see what they could do. Saban said Monday that Young was day-to-day with a shoulder sprain. Thank God it was just a shoulder sprain. Thank God if you're Alabama. Because if you're not Alabama, why would you care? I can pretty much guarantee you that Texas A&M would care. You know, pretty much guarantee you that Texas A&M would care. I'm getting tagged in a Facebook post right now. Let's see what this says. Thanks, Chris. I'm just reading your text here or your post, and I really appreciate. Feel free to come on, Chris. Feel free to come on. That's Chris Arnold, who was a news reporter out in Salt Lake City, Utah. Nowadays, he used to be in Kansas, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest, in corn country, not far from Nebraska. Now he's in Utah, land of the Utes. So we'll see. We'll see if Chris comes on. I got two Chris's. Two Chris's could be coming on tonight. How about that? We'll see. We'll see. Look, I invite anybody that wants to that's watching that wants to come on. Come on, click the link. That's all you got to do. I don't care if I know you or not. Click the link. Join us. Okay, Quinn Ewers, I'm sorry, is expected to start for Texas against Oklahoma this weekend in the Red River Showdown. That's according to Pete Thamel of ESPN. Ewers missed the last month with an injury in his non-throwing shoulder, and an injury that he suffered against Alabama. The redshirt freshman suffered a significant SC sprain in a loss to Alabama on September the 10th. He completed 69.5% of his passes for 359 yards and 2 touchdowns to 1 interception in the time that he's played for Texas. Those are not bad stats, by the way. Not bad at all. I mean, really, not bad stats. Hudson Card has performed solidly for the Longhorns and led Texas to a 2-1 record over the last 3 games. He's thrown for 303 yards and 3 touchdowns, both career highs in last Saturday's win over West Virginia. Ewers will return against a struggling Oklahoma defense that gave up 55 points and 668 yards in a loss to TCU last week. That is Brent Venables has got to be in like the worst state of mind as a defensive-minded football coach when his Oklahoma Sooners gave up 668 yards of offense to TCU. I mean, I know that Sonny Dykes' offenses have been historically explosive, but as Oklahoma defense, that is not Oklahoma football. And they've struggled the last 2 games. Talking continuing injuries here, Max Johnson of Texas A&M could miss the remainder of the season with a hand injury, according to Brett McMurphy of Action Network. A broken bone in his throwing hand. Johnson suffered the injury in last week's loss to Mississippi State. He finished the game with 19 completions for 203 yards and a touchdown. The 21-year-old LSU transfer took over the starting job in the Aggies' 3rd game of the year against Arkansas after quarterback Haynes King struggled in the previous 2 games. Johnson has recorded 517 passing yards for 3 touchdowns this year. Texas A&M, as we all know, has Alabama on Saturday. So here's an interesting little story. Clemson defensive backs Malcolm Green and Fred Davis II are being sued by a United States postal worker whose car Davis collided with last year. The suit was filed on Wednesday in Pickens County Common Pleas Court, a form of civil court. It's in South Carolina. The suit alleges that Green and Davis were racing their cars and driving recklessly when Davis's vehicle hit a mail delivery truck driven by Karen Alvarez in July of 2021. Davis was arrested by the Clemson Police Department and charged with reckless driving after the accident. That charge is a misdemeanor in South Carolina, punishable by a maximum of 30 days in jail, a fine of $200, and 6 points against your driver's license. Clemson coach Dabo Swinney said at the time that Davis's punishment from the team would be handled internally. Ross Taylor, Clemson's team spokesman, said he was aware of the lawsuit and that Swinney would be available to answer questions after Wednesday's practice. Clemson is number 5 in the country with a 5-0 record, and they play at Boston College Saturday night. The suit asks for an unspecified amount for damages. Davis and Green have 30 days to respond to the complaint. Quarterback Drew Pine has given Notre Dame's offense exactly what it needed: hope. He's 2-0 since replacing the injured Tyler Buckner and has the Fighting Irish back at 500 and is leading a major mid-season turnaround and seems to be winning over Coach Marcus Freeman. Freeman said that's the most important thing at the quarterback position, making good decisions. You've got to make the right decision. Number 2, he's limited his turnovers. He's taking care of the football. Number 3, he's starting to make a lot of plays. And that plan seems to be working wonders for an Irish offense that sputtered early. It helped the then winless Irish grind out a badly needed victory over Cal 3 weeks ago. Notre Dame used that momentum to fuel its best offensive performance of the season at North Carolina when Pine went 24 of 34 for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. Notre Dame finished with 45 points and 576 yards of total offense, both season bests. Notre Dame had a bye week this week, and they hope to continue his hot streak Saturday night against the number 16 BYU Cougars, a game that's going to be played in Las Vegas. Think about this. We're going to stop right there. Think about this. This game is in Las Vegas. Catholics and Mormons in Las Vegas? I wonder how that's going to work out. You know the Mormons aren't going to go out anywhere. I mean, you think they're going to go out and gamble? I don't think so. You know, that's the thing when you get to talking. Cigar goes out. You just hate when that happens? I do. So, that's that. All right, we're going to go ahead and start our preview of the SEC slate as we continue to wait on my guest, who I don't know if he's going to show up on this program or not. Let's see. I'm going to send him a text message and see if he's going to come on. Let's see. All right. All right, here we go. Saturday, SEC football on tap. Arkansas, after getting drubbed by Alabama last week, takes on Mississippi State in Starkville. The Mississippi State Bulldogs are a 9-point favorite at home in Davis Wade Stadium. This is an 11 o'clock kickoff in Starkville, Mississippi. A couple things to think about here. Both offenses are averaging well over 400 yards of total offense. And Mississippi State is more of that air raid, averaging 346 yards through the air, only 93 yards on the ground, but that is to be expected in an air raid offense led by Mike Leach, whereas in Arkansas's case, averaging 472 yards of total offense, and they are pretty much balanced. 226 through the air, 432 on the ground. So a balanced offense. It's a balanced attack for Arkansas offensively that Mississippi State will need to try to figure out. Arkansas is averaging 32 points a game, where Mississippi State is averaging 38. Now, defensively, these numbers are atrocious for Arkansas. They are giving up 462 yards of total offense a game, 289 through the air, 142 on the ground. This is not a very good Arkansas defense. I can tell you that right now. To be 4-1 at this point in the year, 3-2 at this point in the year is they're lucky with these offensive numbers. With these defensive numbers. They're going to need to figure something out. Mississippi State's defense is giving up right at about 350 yards a game, 215 through the air, 118 on the ground. I know these numbers don't make any sense, but it's the information that I got. They're giving up only about 22 points a game, which isn't bad, but it's not great either. But they're holding their opponents to 29% on third down conversion. So Mississippi State's defense is pretty good, all things considered. They're more of a bend but don't break defense. And if they could, get a hold of KJ Jefferson in that Arkansas offense early, Mississippi State may actually come out of this game smelling like roses. They're like I said, 9-point favorite at home in Starkville, where the cowbells are going to be prevalent, and I got my opinions about those cowbells. It's going to be a tough one for Arkansas. It really is. Will Rogers is one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, and he looks like he's going to give Arkansas fits with with Arkansas's passing defense not being very good. So. Arkansas, if they want to have a chance, they're going to need to jump on Mississippi State early. I don't know if that's going to be able to if that's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to watch, though, in Starkville. Also at 11 o'clock local time kickoff, Missouri travels to Gainesville, where the Tigers are an 11-point road dog at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium in Gainesville. Missouri can't get anything going offensively. They're only putting up 386 yards of offense. They're okay at running the football. They can't throw it, only averaging 206 yards a game. Florida, much better than Missouri on offense, but it's defensively where Florida lacks. They're giving up 432 yards of offense per game. They're giving up 193 on the ground. Giving up 228 through the air is not that bad. But when you're giving up close to 200 yards on the ground, it means there's leakage in your front seven. Yes, and I use the word leakage. Good cigar. Is that dropping it? Are you kidding me? It live TV, folks. Live TV. You never know what you're going to get. Florida giving up 27 points a game. Missouri giving up 25 points a game. Missouri's defense giving up only 350 yards total which isn't bad, but because their offense isn't all that great, they can't score. I mean, they just can't. Missouri did have Georgia on the ropes, which I'm still trying to figure out how in the heck that happened. Still trying to figure out how in the heck that happened. Anybody got any idea? I mean, really. Missouri 2-3 on the year. Florida 3-2. All right. LSU and Tennessee. This is the game that I'm going to be at. This is a matchup that is really highly anticipated this weekend. It's the only top game where two top 25 teams are involved in the Southeastern Conference. Tennessee is a 3-point road favorite in Death Valley. LSU has steadily improved from their debacle against Florida State. They got down 17-0 to Auburn, came back and won. Earlier in the year, they got down 13-0 to Mississippi State, came back and won. What is that indicative of? Slow starts. Slow starts. In this game, against an offense that is averaging 568 yards of offense. Yeah, I said that right. 568. LSU cannot afford a slow start. Cannot afford a slow start. Because this is a team that LSU is going up against that will move the football at will. Hendon Hooker is probably a dark horse Heisman candidate with the way he's been playing. Tennessee is undefeated, number 8 in the country, and rightly so. Tennessee is averaging 48.5 points a game and are converting on 45% of their third down attempts. Now, so is LSU. LSU is averaging 457 a game, total offense, 247 through the air, 196 on the ground. LSU could run the football. They can run the football. But Tennessee's defense can stop the run. Tennessee's defense is giving up 97.8 yards a game on the ground. That's good. But here's the problem for Tennessee's defense. They're giving up 309 yards a game through the air. This is a game where LSU may struggle running the football, but may be great at throwing the football. And this is where we need to see Jaden Daniels throw the ball. And he's going to need to throw the ball effectively. He's got weapons at the receiver position. This may also have to be a Kayshon Boutte coming out party. Kayshon Boutte has not gotten the football much at all this year. He's getting discouraged. He's supposed to be a top receiver not only in the SEC, but in the nation. Okay? And he's not able to get the football. If there's a game where Kayshon Boutte needs to get the football, it's this one. All right, it's this one against Tennessee. He's got to take advantage of the situation because you're going up against the defense that is giving up 309 yards through the air. This is the opportunity for those LSU receivers to have a great day. 11 o'clock kickoff, ESPN, nationally televised. This is the opportunity for LSU to show what they can do through the air. Like I said, may struggle running the football, but there is tremendous opportunity through the air against a really bad Tennessee passing defense. LSU's defense has played lights out all year, and they're going to need to continue to do it against a really good Tennessee offense. Again, going to be tough for LSU to do it, but if there's any solace or silver lining going into this football game, it's the fact that this game is at home in Baton Rouge, and I'll be there to watch it. Auburn and Georgia. Auburn had an opportunity to beat LSU. And, by the way, this is the first time since 2017 where Tennessee and LSU have met. First time since 2017, and that game was in Knoxville where LSU won 30-20. Now, between the hedges, Athens, Georgia, the defending national champions and number 2 ranked team in the country. As it looks like Chris is trying to join us here tonight. Chris, no picture?
No, I am nowhere near camera worthy this evening.
Man, I was hoping to see your face, although I'm going to see it tomorrow. And
that you will.
This weekend.
Yes.
Got finished previewing the LSU game, but let's go back to it real quick. I want to get
Well,
your thought.
we don't have to go immediately back to it. We can circle back to it later.
Okay, all right, so let's circle back to it. But right now we're going through the entire SEC slate. Let's go between the hedges in Athens, where Auburn is a, dare I say it, a right now 29.5-point road underdog against the number 2 ranked team in the country.
Man, I think the easy thing right now is to dunk on Auburn just because of the situation and the fact that they're not very good. But that's the thing about the SEC, and it's, you and I talked about it. It's that any given Saturday situation with the Southeastern Conference, to where anybody can be great on a Saturday, anybody can be terrible on a Saturday, and just because somebody is multi-score favorites does not mean A, they'll cover, or B, they'll even win the game. Georgia has not looked like the world beaters that they did in week 1 when they absolutely roasted Oregon. They've had some struggles against Kent State, and then most recently against Missouri because, it's Missouri. Why not? Let's struggle up there. Missouri had every right to win that game. Georgia out-talented them at the end because Missouri couldn't hold it for 4 quarters. I wouldn't necessarily call for the upset, but I don't expect Georgia to cover that 29.
Let me ask you this. If you're Auburn in this situation and you put on the tape or the film or whatever they call it these days of that Georgia,
I guess they'll call it film.
Okay, of that Georgia-Missouri game last week, where Georgia was what, a 27-point favorite on the road?
I believe so.
Something close to that. Okay, if you're putting on that film, and you're Auburn, does watching that film give you a sense of solace that, hey, we could try to play with these guys?
It probably does. But I think also too. In reverse, all these teams share film with one another, and I think all Georgia really has to do is put on Auburn's film against LSU, and to see that. It's not a secret. Robbie Ashford is not great at throwing the football consistently. He's more of a run-first quarterback. He beat LSU on one play that they actually lucked into, where the receiver ran an out and up after Robbie Ashford scrambled a little bit, and the coverage that LSU was playing, that was the one route that would have beaten that coverage, and the receiver happened to just run it by improv, so it wasn't exactly the route. And the other one was just straight up busted coverage. So, I mean, you take those two big chunk plays away, and Robbie Ashford didn't throw for over 300 against LSU. He's not a great quarterback. And Georgia's got a defense that if they play their brand of football, Auburn has no shot. But, I mean, if you're Auburn and you're Brian Harrison, pull anything fun out of the bag of tricks because, I mean, at this point, your season's lost. And, depending on who you talk to, his job is lost. So, I mean, it kind of is what it is there.
Okay, piggybacking off of what you just said, that last comment, though, that this is where, and this is an aside from the game no matter what, I feel that it's disrespectful. Yes, the rumors are out there. He's on the hot seat, this, that, and the other, yada, yada, yada. But it's disrespectful to me. I find it disrespectful that we're talking about candidates or potential candidates for a job that's not officially open. We're talking about a coach being fired who has not officially been fired. He's still the head coach at Auburn, and we're talking about this. And let's say he does pull off the upset this weekend against Georgia. He could keep his job after this one.
I mean, it really all depends, right? I mean, I remember a similar situation when Mac Brown was allegedly retiring from Texas, and literally everyone at ESPN was ready to name anybody the next head coach. I remember, and you and I took issue with it back then, and I mean, to a degree, I take issue with it now. It's like the man hasn't. I mean, this is what Brian Harrison's second year in Auburn, Alabama, and look, I think the one thing that I think would really do college football and fans in general a great deal of good is everyone learning that very, very stubborn value of patience. Because everybody wants to win right now. Not everybody, but the elite have 100,000 seat stadiums, and they have to compete with TV contracts and TV deals to get people in seats. And to get people in seats, you need to win. And to win, you need to do it now. You can't do it 3 years from now. You can't build a program in 3 years. You can't build a culture. You have to win right damn now, or you do not have a job. And it's absurd. Like, I mean, I think of to morph it into an LSU comment real quick. I just think of some fan expectations that some LSU fans had for the season, thinking we'll win 10 or 11 games just because we changed coaches. I'm like, whoa, look at what he's replacing. Look at every void he had to fill to just get where we are. Somebody, I think it was a clip of the Paul Feinbaum show, and somebody was talking about Jimbo Fisher, and they compared and contrasted Jimbo Fisher's job this season at A&M to Brian Kelly's job at LSU this year. And the guy basically was saying, Brian Kelly's got that roster duct taped together, and they're undefeated in the conference right now. And Jimbo's got all these 4- and 5-star guys. He's been there forever, and because he runs an antiquated offense, they look like complete crap.
Right. Yeah. Jimbo.
So people need to be more patient in regards to Brian Harrison, his job, and everything. He's in his second year. He coaches in the SEC West, which is the closest division of college football you're going to get to the NFL. You can't attempt to fire a guy in between year 1 and year 2 just because you weren't incredibly happy. He's trying to install a culture that you wanted him to, or else you wouldn't have hired him. And because things didn't go right in the first year, you stage a coup and fail to get him fired.
And they're still trying to get him fired.
I mean,
they're still trying to get him fired. Because he wasn't their first choice. Here's an idea. Why did you fire Gus Malzahn? There's a thought. Why?
I mean that's a great question. He seems to be doing pretty well over in Orlando.
Looking at the numbers for this Auburn-Georgia game, it's not like Auburn's defense is terrible. I mean, they are giving up 345 total offense, which is not entirely bad considering the offense, the types of offenses that Auburn has seen so far this year.
And considering the modern age of college football,
correct.
Everybody gives up 300 yards a game.
Yeah, you're giving up 345. Look, they're giving up 193 through the air and 138 on the ground. I mean, those are not terrible numbers defensively. The problem going into this game against Georgia, Stetson Bennett's throwing for 340. They're running the football at 178 a game. They're averaging over 500 yards of offense. The question is Auburn's defense going to be able to stop that machine on offense?
Well, also the question here is, and this is where you kind of have to look at the quality of opponent that Georgia has played up to this point in the season. Those stats that you just rattled off, could you look at them and consider them to be inflated, given Oregon doesn't play defense? Oregon didn't play defense. They didn't believe in defense. They've never believed in defense up in Eugene, Oregon. It's always been about the uniforms and the offense. So you can take out the Oregon game. Kent State, for all of them being Kent State, I mean, and you also look at Missouri late in the game. How much in crunch time when Georgia needed to come back, are they chucking the ball all around the field? Were they methodical? Did they do this, that, the other thing? So you have to kind of take into consideration circumstances in which they gain those yards as well.
I'll put it to you this way. Missouri held Georgia to 481 yards of offense. Held them to 481 yards of offense. But let's see. Georgia turned the ball over twice.
So that you can't do.
Right. So that's where and time of possession in this one doesn't really matter because Georgia dominated time of possession. They just couldn't score when they needed to.
Right. And time of possession is a funky stat anyway, because it's like, yeah, you could have had the ball for 45 minutes in a football game, but you still you still could have lost the game for various reasons.
You like Georgia
as well?
Yeah, you like Georgia in this one?
Yeah, I like Georgia in that one. I mean, look, Georgia's in that unique position of, all right, look, they were number one because they looked sloppy against the conference opponent. I also don't ever feel like punishing a team for winning and dropping them in the rankings is ever a good thing. Nor do I believe it's right. But I mean, look, the pollsters did what they did, but Georgia's coming out of that position of, hey, we got a scare last week. Here's a conference opponent, a rival no less. We need to come out and show everybody, look, last week and the Kent State game and everything like that, that was a fluke. This is what Georgia football is. We're back to obliterating folks, and it starts with Georgia. It starts with Auburn. So, yeah, give me Georgia. I don't think they cover the 29 or 29.5, but I'll take Georgia to win that game.
Okay. First Bank Stadium, Nashville, Tennessee, the number 9 ranked Ole Miss Rebels, whose defense has been playing stellar, all things considered, this season, will travel to play the Vanderbilt Commodores. Vanderbilt is 3-2. However, they haven't won a conference game yet.
And they likely won't win a conference game.
And Ole Miss is right now currently a 17-point favorite on the road. And this line actually moved from Ole Miss 18.5 to Ole Miss 17. The over-under is 62.
Well, I wouldn't take the over, but I definitely think that's the 17 y'all cover. I mean, look, Vandy, congrats to them. Y'all won just 2 games last year. You've already eclipsed your win total from an entire season ago. Good for y'all up in Nashville. Get ready for baseball season. That's all I can say. I mean, I hate to say it, and look, all I'm going to say is this to Ole Miss: y'all go easy on the nerds in Nashville this weekend. Look, I mean, look. They came out swinging against Hawaii in the first game. They looked great. Wake Forest humbled them a bit, but they got to 2-0 at one point in the season. I mean, you know, I have a soft spot for Vandy football because it's kind of like watching any one of those little baby high schools that John Curtis plays year in and year out before they join the Catholic League, and Curtis just runs the veer all over them because that's the only thing John Curtis has known how to run in 25 to 50 years of coaching football, and they just obliterate everybody they play. And that's kind of how I look at Vandy. Vandy is that team Curtis plays every week that just gets obliterated.
Let's look at the numbers real quick on going into this game. Ole Miss is only
Sorry
averaging,
for all of you not in New Orleans watching this who don't get the New Orleans high school football reference.
For those that are going to watch this later on, whether it's in this local area or around the country, I guarantee you there are high school coaches and people that follow high school football religiously around the country that know who John Curtis Christian is because of JT Curtis, who is, look, we could say what we want to say about JT. He is a legend in Louisiana high school football. He's a masterful head coach. You don't win 26 state championships and not
in
be
53 years or something like that.
Still, that's one every other year almost.
Oh no, I'm not knocking it.
He's a legend.
You've won state championship more than half the time you've been coaching. That's impressive. I mean, hey, and if you want to talk to somebody out of Louisiana real quick about John Curtis, go look up any coach in Hoover, Alabama. They'll tell you about him.
Well, yeah, and then also to look at it, JT's won 600 games, 600 plus games. So, I mean,
that's impressive.
It is impressive. We could say what we want to say about his program, but it is impressive what he's been able to accomplish during his time as a head football coach. Looking at the numbers between Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, couple things here that stand out to me. Ole Miss can't throw the football.
Can't?
No, they can't. And
that's not something I thought I'd ever hear about a Lane Kiffin coach team.
Right, but this is a program right now. This year's version of the Ole Miss Rebels only throwing for 208 yards a game. But what's winning them football games is the fact that they can run the football on anybody. Averaging 262 yards a game on the ground. That's top 10 in the country. Okay? Top 10 in the country. Now, looking at
Zach Evans putting work in.
Vanderbilt's defense gives up 300 yards a game through the air and about 158 on the ground. If there's going to be a coming out party for Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback, it might be this one.
Yeah, I mean, and look, again, I have no delusions of Vandy beating y'all. I mean, about Vandy beating Ole Miss. There's a different caliber of player at Ole Miss than there is at Vandy, and you don't have to, you don't have to reach in saying that or thinking that. So it's just, like I said, just y'all go to Nashville, take care of business, and get back to Oxford safe. There's no reason to rub Vandy's nose in it.
Right. Well, and Ole Miss's defense giving up only 337 total offense. And how about this stat? They are allowing, this Ole Miss defense is allowing 11.8 points a ball game. Now, 5-0, the best team that we've played so far is Kentucky. Beat Kentucky, although Kentucky wants to say they shot themselves in the foot, and to an extent they did, but it was still up to that Ole Miss defense to take advantage of the miscues from Kentucky's offense and special teams. They did just that, and that's why Ole Miss is now a top 10 football program and beat a really good Kentucky team. And now they I don't want to say they're going to get a week off because this is still an SEC opponent, but it's a cellar dweller in the SEC.
It is a cellar dweller. Now, what I'm about to say might frustrate you a bit, but you knew my opinion of Ole Miss's schedule going into the season.
Absolutely.
Y'all front-loaded the sugar in the front half of y'all's schedule, going 4-0 up to Kentucky with the cupcakes was what I said.
Right.
In the preseason. I watched that Ole Miss Kentucky game, and there were, I believe, 3 instances where Kentucky could have landed a blow that would have knocked the game out of reach for you guys. But credit to Ole Miss's defense for forcing turnovers and causing those Kentucky miscues. But I think the obviously I do believe y'all are going to take care of Vanderbilt. I'm not taking away from that analysis whatsoever. I am going to say, though, that in my personal opinion, I feel like that number 9 ranking is a tad bit inflated when you beat a conference opponent by 3 in a struggle win, let's call it what it is, after beating 4 teams that you absolutely should have beaten, hands down, no excuses.
You know what this is called, though? With a close game against Kentucky, and really a close game against Tulsa the week before. Dare I say it, Ole Miss is battle tested going against Vanderbilt. Just saying.
See, I'll give you battle tested on grounds of the Kentucky game. However, if you want to talk about battle tested, I would very easily argue that their LSU is far more battle tested than Ole Miss is.
Oh, absolutely. But look at it this way: Ole Miss.
But we'll see you guys next weekend anyway.
Actually, no, it's not.
It's
It's not next weekend. It's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. You're right.
Because
you're right.
Ole Miss has an opportunity. Ole Miss has an opportunity here to be 6-0 and bowl eligible going into their home game next week against Auburn.
I legitimately believe y'all will be 7-0 before y'all come to Death Valley.
And then the real tests now come into play. The last 5 games of the year for Ole Miss are going to be the toughest on the schedule, and it starts in Baton Rouge on October the 22nd.
Like I said, I believe y'all will be 7-0 going into that football game. Because y'all will take care of Vandy, and then depending on what happens this weekend with Auburn, Georgia, I still feel like Georgia is going to put Auburn in a body bag. So who knows what shattered remnants of a football team y'all are going to get next week from the team on the Plains.
South Carolina travels to Lexington, speaking of Kentucky, travels to Lexington to take on the Wildcats. This is a game that opened Kentucky minus 10.5, and all of a sudden it's down to Kentucky minus 6.5. I don't know what happened there. The number 13th ranked Wildcats, though, host an SEC East foe with, I mean, obviously, if you want to look at the grand scheme of things, there's still a lot for Kentucky to accomplish the rest of the way, and it starts this weekend against the Gamecocks.
Well, there is still a ton for Kentucky to accomplish this season. Losing to y'all didn't hurt their chances to get to Atlanta just by virtue of the fact that Ole Miss is obviously in a different division than Kentucky is. I feel like Beamer ball hasn't really taken off in Columbia, South Carolina just yet. And I think this is going to be Kentucky's get right game, so to speak. Like they probably feel like they had a shot or multiple shots to win again to win in Oxford last weekend, and they didn't capitalize on those chances. This is going to be that week where they're going back home and they're getting an SEC East opponent that on paper doesn't necessarily match up, but again, you don't play the game on paper.
Right. South Carolina, though, can score points. I mean, 35.6 points a ball game. They're not bad defensively. I mean, they're only giving up 370 total offense. I mean, they're not terrible on defense. This one really can go either way if you really want to look at it. I mean, but Kentucky is obviously the more talented ball club. But it just takes one play to swing momentum, as in any game, and you just never know. The question now is, if you're Kentucky, how much did that Ole Miss game last week take out of them emotionally, and can South Carolina take advantage of that situation?
I think. I mean, any loss is going to be an emotional one, whether it was a last second came down to the final drive type of loss, or whether you got beat by 30. But I think Coach Stoops up in Lexington is going to have his team ready for this one, saying like, "Look, fellas, we had it last weekend. All we got to do is clean up some mistakes and play the football that we know we can play, because Kentucky can put up points. Will Levis is not a slouch of a quarterback." And the running back, I don't know his first name, but Rodriguez for Kentucky, last weekend was his first game back after a 4-game suspension. So he's only going to get more game reps, and he's going to get back to game speed, and he's a dangerous running back. So, I mean, if Kentucky just plays their brand of football and plays the offense that they want to run, the offense they want to run, they'll put up points as well.
Chris,
so, I mean, you could be looking at a shootout.
You could, but Chris, I just found something here, and I think this is interesting as to why the line dropped like it did. It's been announced now that Will Levis is questionable with an undisclosed issue.
Oh.
So that might change things up a little bit and actually give South Carolina a chance. I mean, I'm not familiar with Kentucky's quarterback situation, but if Will Levis can't go Saturday night, this is an interesting development.
That is an interesting development, and I'm not going to lie. I am not well versed in Kentucky's quarterback situation either, because literally the only 2 players I know on that roster the running back whose last name is Rodriguez, and then Will Levis. That's it.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Wildcats. 6:30 local time, 6:30 Central Time kickoff in Lexington, and then Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the number 1 ranked team in the country. The Alabama Crimson Tide taking on Jimbo Fisher, and in Tuesday's broadcast, I said that this game might be more entertaining if they were to set up a wrestling ring at midfield in Bryant-Denny Stadium and let Jimbo and Nick fight.
I second that opinion. This game, look, if A&M somehow pulls the upset on Alabama for the second year in a row, and we all know Nick Saban does not lose to the same coach to the same team 2 years in a row. It doesn't happen often, if at all.
It did.
I mean, it has happened. I know that because Hugh Freeze did it, Les Miles did it, and I want to say Kevin someone did it back when he had Johnny Manziel. So coaches have done it. Jimbo's not doing it this season. Until Jimbo can, one, put his ego aside and hire an offensive coordinator that will be a play caller that will run Jimbo's scheme but advance it a little bit, that team is going to go nowhere, particularly with Max Johnson at quarterback, particularly with an expiration date on the offense that Jimbo ran being in 2014.
Right.
Bama's defense is too talented. Bama has dudes everywhere. With or without Bryce Young, Bama wins this game handily, and it's not even close.
Bama is a 24-point favorite, and Bryce Young is, according to Nick Saban today, Bryce Young is a game-time decision with that shoulder injury. He has practiced all year. He's told coach, "Look, I'm good to go." But obviously with something like this, and you're a potential, your potential Heisman Trophy winner, a repeat Heisman Trophy winner, you want to take this very, very seriously. You want to be careful with it. It's going to be a game-time decision for Bryce Young. But at the same time, I'm in agreement with you. I think Texas A&M is in shambles. Their quarterback situation is probably worse than Kentucky's if you want to think about it. Max Johnson is out with a hand injury. It's an injury that could potentially sideline him for the remainder of the year. A&M may go back to Hayes King, who
was not good to begin with because he lost the job to Max Johnson anyway.
Which that experiment didn't work out whatsoever. And you want to talk about how antiquated Jimbo Fisher's offense is. A&M is only averaging 350 yards of total offense coming into this game, while Alabama is only giving up 258 yards of total offense. I don't see, unless something happens, I don't see Alabama losing this football game whatsoever. It's like Lee Corso would say, A&M's got 2 chances to win this football game, slim and none, and slim just jumped out the window.
Yeah, I just know it's not happening, and it's just funny. One, I do have to say this though because it's a Saban thing. I do believe in 2019 with the ankle injury, Tua was a quote unquote game time decision. We saw how that game played out. Tua didn't play his best game of the season that year, and then later Tua got his hip destroyed against Mississippi State in a game he didn't even need to be playing in. So I think last week against Arkansas, whoever their backup quarterback is, who's essentially a gigantic ass running back who can throw the football occasionally, Bama could start that guy and play him for 4 quarters, and they would still win the game handily. Bama could play their entire second string on offense and defense and still win the game.
Bama is
like that's how little faith I have in Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, Alabama is averaging 48 points a game and 531 yards of total offense. Good luck, Jimbo. Holy cow! Like I said, I think this game would be more entertaining. Would you put both coaches inside of a wrestling ring at midfield in Tuscaloosa? Hell, put a steel cage around it. That'll be even great. We could see blood, and even then, my money would still be on Nick Saban because I wouldn't want to face him in a fight.
As old as Nick Saban is, you wouldn't want to face him in a fight?
No, not at all. Saban's scary.
Yeah, but that doesn't take away the fact he's still 30 to 40 years your former.
Yes,
and you
but
as a
Jimbo looks
spry
like
30-something-year-old, I think you'd be fine.
Yeah, but I still don't think Jimbo is a guy that would want to fight. Saban would fight. All right. Before we circle back to the LSU. Let me ask you this question, and I will bring my microphone and I will ask this question if we have time pregame on Saturday morning. Here's my question of the night for you. Look at all the SEC coaches. If you're going to take one to be your tag team partner in a wrestling match, who would it be and why?
Wow.
Who would you want as an SEC head coach? Who would you want to be your partner in a fight?
You're going to laugh at this? Sam Pittman.
That's not a bad one.
Sam Pittman, because he can give everybody the Big Show treatment.
I mean, if I'd like Billy Napier. Billy Napier.
Yeah, Billy got a little bit of wild Cajun in him. Yeah.
Billy Napier. I mean, if you spend as much time in Lafayette, Louisiana, as Billy Napier did, hell, I'd like my chances with Billy Napier.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad call either.
The other guy, too, that I would like to have with me in a fight, call me nuts, I like Kirby Smart.
Yeah, Kirby's just wild.
So between
Kirby's
Billy
crazy.
and Kirby, I mean, I don't think I'd go wrong with either one of those two. The one guy that I know I would not want with me in a fight is Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. I wouldn't want him. He looks like a guy that can't throw a punch.
He'd be the one that would tell bad jokes with the opposition in the fight, trying to get them to distract them and make them laugh, and it wouldn't work.
No, not at all.
Nope.
All right, let's circle back to LSU, Tennessee. I think you and I have talked about this, and this is your team, and we talked ad nauseum about the Ole Miss Vanderbilt game. So let's talk about your team and the LSU Tigers. A 3-point home dog, which is somewhat surprising to me considering how explosive that Tennessee offense is. But let's give credit to that LSU defense who has played their butts off all year. But this is a game in which if LSU's offense has a slow start like they did against State, like they did against Florida State, and like they did against Auburn, I don't like LSU's chances against Tennessee because Tennessee is one of those teams with the offense that they have that they could jump out to a 21-0, maybe a 28-0 lead in a blink of an eye, and it would be very, very tough for LSU to catch that.
I completely agree. And I still feel like now I'm going to go back to this. You gave massive credit and props to the LSU defense. I would like to second that, first of all, because Matt House, it has been probably one of the better hires that Brian Kelly made in the offseason. And his defense, while getting a little out-schemed, and it took him a while to adjust to Florida State, has hit the ground running just about against everybody else. We shut out Mississippi State, only kicked a field goal in the second half on LSU's comeback victory against the Bulldogs. New Mexico State didn't have over 100 total yards.
That's New Mexico, by the way. New Mexico.
Still, hey, I don't care what level of competition they are. You shut somebody out, that's an accomplishment.
Oh, agreed.
It is what it is.
Let's not confuse New Mexico and New Mexico State. They don't like that over there.
Forgive me. New Mexico State. My apologies to the land of enchantment. But then we shut Auburn out in the second half. Granted, Auburn's offense is not amazing, but again, SEC opponent, you didn't score in the entirety of the second half. And LSU, I believe, is either leads the SEC or is in the top 3 in turnovers forced with, I believe, 12 so far this season. And LSU is the number 1 red zone defense in the conference. Conversely, Tennessee is the number one red zone offense in the conference. So I believe someone somewhere said something's got to give in that situation. Tennessee also has the worst pass defense in the conference and in the country. I believe they're ranked number 128 out of 131 in pass defense. If the offensive line can give Jaden Daniels enough time, and if Jaden Daniels can start being a little bit more aggressive with his passes, because he's said, and I mean, if you watch an LSU game, you've seen it. Jaden Daniels is very, very, very conservative with the football. He does not want to turn the ball over, which I agree. I don't like interceptions or turnovers either, but he does not throw guys open. He does not throw the ball to receivers before they get out of their breaks. He waits for guys to get wide open before he lets the ball go. That's a problem. But if he can throw receivers open, and give his receivers chances to actually catch footballs, even if he does turn the ball over a little bit, I like LSU's receiver room to exploit the secondary of Tennessee, who may be without their best corner, I believe, because he had an ankle surgery. No, it was one of their receivers. Either way, I like LSU's receiver room. I like those guys.
Yeah,
that's I mean, this weekend screams opportunity for Keishon Boutte and Jack Besh and all those guys.
Yeah, look, I was just about to say this. I know Keishon Boutte is very frustrated that he's not getting the ball like he is, and that's the respect that teams are giving him. The fact because they don't want Keishon Boutte to beat them, so it opens up opportunities for other receivers. The problem is LSU. If I could pull the stats back up here, LSU does pass the football at 247 a game, but this is like you and I both agree, this is an opportunity for Jaden Daniels to throw the football. And if Keishon Boutte does not get the football in this football game, it would be a travesty.
I think
and put it this way. And put it this way. Anthony Richardson at Florida threw for 450 yards against this defense.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it is what it is as far as getting Keishon Boutte the ball. I am not one of those people that wants to cater an offense to a single player. I think one player does not make an entire team, and I'm fairly certain that a lot of people would agree with me on that. But you can see the ways the coaching staff has tried to scheme to get Keishon into the game and get the ball in his hands. He just has drawn a ton of double teams this entire season, and there have been times where he's faced accusations of him being like checked out or not wanting to be there, or quitting on the team. That's been refuted by literally everybody in the building. It is what it is, and even for somebody as much of a gamer as Keishon Boutte is, it's really hard when you're lining up, you're giving your full effort on a route, and you're looking, and your quarterback is either getting sacked, running, or the ball is going somewhere else. So when the ball comes back to you, it's difficult to get back into that mode of catching a football and getting your hands warmed up versus when you're getting all the reps.
Right.
So I get it. I get that there. But there are other ways to get him involved in the football game other than passing in the ball. We've run some jet sweeps and jet motions with him, getting him out of the backfield, and that seems to work. We haven't run, I think, a single bubble or tunnel screen since the Florida State game, if I'm not mistaken, with the receivers. We've thrown some running back screens. But, I mean, the little ways to get him and Malik Neighbors in space to let them make plays. Because if you give them any amount of yardage to work with, good night. And it did get called back because of a horrendous blindside block call against New Mexico State. But Jack Besh is deceptively fast. And if you give that kid room to run, he will outrun you.
Couple more things here that I've noticed. This game has the potential could go one or two ways. Either Tennessee's going to jump out early on LSU and take advantage of an LSU slow start, or this one could be a shootout.
It could be.
It really could be.
I mean, it absolutely could be. The thing that LSU needs to do is One, to take a quote from the late Kicks, Josh Pate, who will be on campus Saturday
Ooh.
in Baton Rouge, because that's one of their doubleheader games, so they will be at the game. He his I don't want to say advice, but his key to the game for LSU, especially on defense, is to make the Tennessee offense wobbly. Like, get them to 3 and out once or twice, a couple times in the beginning of the game. Get Hendon Hooker off of his rhythm and make him second guess some stuff, because LSU's linebackers are wicked talented, and Harold Perkins, as a true freshman, is looking very Devin White esque.
Yep.
And that's high praise for the freshman. But he did wonders late in the Auburn game as a spy on the quarterback. I would have Perkins in that role all game, to where if Hooker wants to run, then stick Harold Perkins on him and have Perkins go make a tackle, because he'll do it. And then if Hooker's going to stay back and try and pass the ball, that's Harold Perkins free blitz. Every time.
Yeah, I think you need to put a spy on Hendon Hooker and keep a spy on him the entire football game, because Hooker can run. He can tuck it and run.
He's a big guy too. He's not like Jaden Daniels size.
Right.
He's got some heft to him.
This is a true mobile quarterback, and it's probably the best quarterback that LSU will have faced all year, and that's no disrespect to Will Rogers, who going into that LSU game a few weeks back was just, was throwing the football, was running that air raid efficiently, and LSU did a great job of shutting him down. But the thing is, Will Rogers is a pocket passer. You're going up against a guy that's a dual threat. He's got size. He's got strength. He's scary to take down. The other thing, too, is LSU's defense here, it's not the scariest LSU defense that they've had in its history, but they play their tails off, and that's what I like about this defense.
Yeah, they're talented. Now, you might not know every name on that defense. The younger guys, you will in the following seasons. And everybody circle Harold Perkins' name now, because he insane kid. But no, you're right. Matt House has that defense playing quite well. They're tough. They are gritty. And they have bought into whatever scheme he's putting in Baton Rouge, and they play to it very well. And also too, and you can maybe pull the number up for me. LSU has forced a fair amount of turnovers this season. It was something they didn't do last season. It was something they didn't do in the COVID year. And by and large, they didn't really force a lot of turnovers in 2019 either. But this year, I think they're already up to I think there's somewhere between 12 and 15 takeaways this season.
Yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that number in front of me, but they forced.
They're up there in turnovers forced. So if you can force Hendon Hooker to turn the ball over once, maybe twice early on in the game.
But here's the deal about that. It's not that they're just forcing turnovers. They are forcing turnovers in key situations in a ball game. They had the late turnover against Auburn last week. They forced a couple of late turnovers against Mississippi State. 2 games that could have gone either way. They forced a key turnover late in the game against Florida State that allowed them to go 99 yards for the score. So LSU's forcing turnovers in key situations, and if this game on Saturday morning becomes close, and they force a late turnover, I mean, you could be looking at an LSU team that's 5-1 with a major upset this year, and look at and that proverbial key win for Brian Kelly in his first year in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, you're looking at another. If LSU is able to win the game, then that's the 3rd culture win of the season for Brian Kelly. Because they said that about the Mississippi State game being a culture win, because, I mean, it was his first conference game as LSU's head coach.
Right.
We won that one. You go on the road and come back from 17 down, score 21 unanswered in Jordan-Hare, which is not an easy place to play at all.
For anybody.
And, for anybody. And you go in there and you win the game. It was a rock fight. It was gross, and it was terrible to watch for almost 3.5 quarters. But you went in there and you got it done. And if you're able to somehow pull the upset this weekend, that's another culture win, and that just makes the buy-in that Coach Kelly has
Right.
already raved about of his team that they've had so far this season. Um, that just increases it.
Look, this game is not only going to be shown nationally on ESPN, it's going to be shown on 2 different cable networks in Canada. That's how big this game is on Saturday in Baton
which
Rouge.
which in my opinion is more of an indictment of CBS for putting this game at 11 a.m. instead of televising what is going to be 2 bloodbaths as a doubleheader,
Right.
rather than show the only top 25 matchup in the SEC this week.
You like
The
LSU?
only one.
You like LSU in this one, or what you leaning?
My purple and gold glasses want me to take LSU. I think it's going to be closer than people expect it to be, given the explosiveness of Tennessee's offense. But I still think I would I'm picking Tennessee by about 4.
You want to talk about? I think Vegas is looking for a shootout. Over under is 65 on this.
Yeah,
one.
I mean Vegas might. I mean, Vegas always usually has their pulse on things correctly. Like somebody, they know stuff over there in the desert.
It's like okay, Alabama was a 17-point favorite on the road against Arkansas, and people were up in arms thinking, no, Arkansas is better than 17, better than what Vegas is giving them credit for.
Yeah, and
Alabama won by 23. So it's like Las Vegas knew what they were talking about in that one.
Yeah, well, for about 3 whole minutes of real life time, not football time, I think Arkansas only trailed by about 4.
I know Arkansas.
Game. It was close for a half a second.
Yeah, Arkansas came back to within 28-23 after being down 28-0, and then it was all Alabama after that. Speaking of Arkansas, let's go through these 2 games real quick, and then we'll focus on the top 25. Arkansas and Mississippi State on the in Starkville. Mississippi State a 9-point favorite. Who do you like?
I like State. Arkansas has one of the worst pass defenses in the SEC. I think they're second or third only to Tennessee and I believe somebody else. But right. Will Rogers, since the LSU game, has been a man on fire. They took care of A&M with relative ease, what it looked like. I like State in the game, and I think that Mike Leach is kind of starting to – I think he was feeling a little bit of the pressure coming into the season because it's like, all right, dude, this is your second, third.
This is his third year. He came into Starkville the same year that Lane Kiffin came into Oxford.
Yeah, it's your third year at State. You run the air raid. Let's see some results here. And I think now post LSU, because a lot of people over in Starkville thought that they should have won the LSU game. I mean, who knows? They probably should have. I don't know. I don't care. My team came out on top of that one, but the way State has been playing post that LSU game is they feel like they got something to prove, and they want to say that, hey, we're better than what our record looks like, even though we feel we should be undefeated right now. I like State over Arkansas. Arkansas just they feel I feel like Arkansas has been a little deflated ever since that fumble on the 1-yard line against A&M and the doink.
That was just a funky football game for Arkansas.
Well, it was.
It was a heartbreaker. It was a heartbreaker for the Razorbacks against A&M.
Also, and I don't believe Arkansas will have KJ Jefferson. Is it KJ? Is CJ Jefferson?
KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have KJ Jefferson for this game either. He's either doubtful or he's also a game time
how about
decision.
this? KJ Jefferson is questionable with the concussion, and Cade Renfro, their second quarterback, is questionable with a knee injury. They could very well be on their third string quarterback in Starkville. Not a good situation for Arkansas there.
No, if that situation plays out any worse, then I like State even more.
Florida is an 11-point favorite at home against Missouri. I like Florida here.
I like Florida as well. Billy Napier's trying to also establish something down in Gainesville. I don't think this year is going to be the year that Florida does anything incredibly remarkable. But Missouri coming off of that gut-wrenching failed upset attempt last weekend. I don't know how much they have left in the tank. And then Florida now Florida does have a little bit of a short week because they played on Sunday last week because they moved their game because of Hurricane Ian. But I definitely think Florida has a talent advantage and also just the emotional advantage of not having had their hearts ripped out the week before.
The
So
good
I
thing,
like Florida as well.
the good thing here about Florida is they didn't have to travel this week, so that helps. That helps them out. Okay, top 25 games in college football outside of the SEC games that we just went over. We're gonna look Michigan, number 4 in the country, taking on Indiana. Michigan, a 22.5-point favorite on the road in Bloomington. No questions here. I like Michigan in this one.
I like Michigan as well. Now, the only thing I'll say about Indiana is they do have a track record of upsetting people in football. So
Look, that well-coached football team, well-coached football
they
program
are.
in Bloomington. I mean, look. Hold on, I'm clicking on the wrong things here. Look, Indiana's 3-2, but their losses came against. They had the loss against Nebraska, which didn't help their cause, and then
Wait, someone lost to Nebraska this season?
yeah, Indiana did.
No.
And then they lost to Cincinnati too. I mean, look, it is what it is. Indiana's not going to be world beaters, but look, they play hard. They're well coached, and a lot. Look, we say a lot. Look, a lot of things can happen here. We want to make fun of these teams that are 20+ point underdogs, but anything could happen. Anything could happen here.
No, ask Michigan about App State being a huge underdog 15 years ago.
College game day is going to be in Lawrence, Kansas for the TCU, ranked number 17 in the country, taking on the number 19 ranked Kansas Jayhawks.
It's really crazy that Kansas is undefeated. If there was ever another 2007 so far, this season is it.
Right.
In terms of vibe, I will say this though, and I feel like Kansas has kind of gotten the ass end of the stick on ranking wise, just because they're 5-0, and I feel like just because they aren't a very recent football power, that ranking looks it would be they would be ranked higher if you replace the Kansas logo with their resume with literally anybody else in the Big 12. They'd be ranked higher.
Right.
And I think it's kind of shit on the rankings and the AP and the coaches and the computers or whatever it is. But I like Kansas, man. They're a feel good thing this year. I'm liking it. But TCU's also playing good football.
The Sonny Dykes went into their game against Oklahoma last week and just lambasted the Sooners.
I thought Brett Venables was supposed to be a defensive guy.
And,
what happened?
Right. I don't know. That's 2 weeks in a row where Oklahoma has gotten killed. 2 weeks in a row, and it's not good. They got beat like a dog against Kansas State, and then TCU put up 55 on them. Not a good situation right now in Norman. And Oklahoma has the Red River Showdown this weekend against Texas. Quinn Ewers is back in the lineup for the Longhorns, by the way.
See, and I don't know what to think about that game either, because I mean, say like you said with Oklahoma lost got beat by Kansas State, who lost to Tulane. So if you want to use the transitive property, which I know too many people rely on with college football, but if you want to, Oklahoma lost to Tulane, and then also getting lambasted by TCU last week, and then Texas, who has already lost to Texas Tech and had that loss to Bama. So it's like you don't know what version of either team you're going to get, and when they play together or they play against each other, it's going to be some fireworks, I hope.
I actually like Texas in that football game. Oklahoma is coming into this game limping. I mean, they're both 3-2.
They're both 3-2, but you're right. Oklahoma's coming into this game on crutches, asking for a wheelchair. In Texas, who did Texas play last week?
Texas,
was that the Texas Tech?
Texas,
was that the Texas Tech game?
Texas last week faced West Virginia, which the Longhorns won 38-20.
Okay, yeah, Texas is trying to build some momentum after the Texas Tech loss. They beat West Virginia last week. I like the Longhorns in this game.
Yeah, I do too.
Either way, the two future SEC programs playing against each other, they're going to be in for an even ruder awakening in 3 years when they join the conference.
Yes, but you know what we're going to see? We're going to continue to see that Red River Showdown when these two join the conference. I guarantee you that. That's one rivalry that's not going to go away because of conference realignment.
Well, we need one to stay because we're losing Bedlam.
No, look, we're only losing Bedlam by choice. It's not because Oklahoma.
Well, it's Oklahoma's choice. Oklahoma State wants to keep playing the game. If Mike Gundy is to be believed, Oklahoma is the one who chose to end that.
And it's a shame. It's just like Texas and Texas A&M, which when Texas comes into the SEC, we're going to see that rivalry one more time.
Well, I think we're going to see it more than one more time.
Well,
and there was also some weird behind the scenes drama with that rivalry as well.
Yeah. Oh, there was. And how much? I mean, considering A&M's situation right now this season, how much are they licking their lips right now to get another shot at Texas? I'm just saying.
I mean, if they looked better, probably more than what they are now. I will say this too. I don't know if you've seen any of them this season, but I would love to give the college football 2022 season MVP to whoever it is at Texas A&M who is filming Midnight Yell and putting it on the internet for all of us to consume the amount of embarrassing content that comes out of College Station.
None of it makes sense.
Have you ever watched any of those?
I did. Matt Moscona put something on Twitter about it, and it's downright embarrassing. And it's like watching. I responded. Look, I responded with a tweet, and I said, "None of this makes sense. None of it."
Those of you out on the internet, if you ever watch a Texas A&M Midnight Yell or Yell practice video, it's like watching the indoctrination of the world's most embarrassing cult members.
Oh my goodness.
Is the only way I can say it. Like the dude in the overalls with the microphone making the world's worst dad jokes. The fact that 6 grown men, I believe it's 6 of them, really need to make hand gestures to get people to yell and practice yelling. It's not that hard.
Look, it's a tradition. It's a tradition over at College Station. I get it. I understand it. But it's disrespectful to the opponent. The stuff that they were saying about Mississippi State is unbelievable. And what's funny is the last, I think it's 6 or 7 games that Mississippi State has played Texas A&M while A&M has been ranked. A&M has only beaten Mississippi State 1 time out of those 6 or 7 games. Mississippi State, no matter if it's been Mike Leach or anybody else that's been, or Dan Mullen that's been the head coach at State when they play A&M, State has owned that series when Texas A&M has been ranked. And you want to take it a step further? Mike Leach is 10-3 all time against Texas A&M.
And that goes back to probably when he was at Texas. When he was at Texas Tech and A&M were both in the Big 12.
Right. But I mean A&M, I think yes.
A&M is embarrassing.
Oh, it absolutely is. They absolutely are.
It's hysterical. And at the time when they joined the conference, when it was them and Mizzou, I was like, look, A&M, y'all have all the traditions. That's really kind of cool. Y'all have always kind of felt like a pseudo SEC team anyway. Welcome to the family. Now it's like, we let y'all in?
Well, look, A&M wants to consider themselves on the same pedestal as Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Tennessee. Look, they're not. They're not. They have been. I
don't think you're going to find anybody who will be able to coherently argue that they are.
Look, in the 10 years that they've been in the conference, football-wise, I think they have, 1, maybe 2 10-win seasons?
Maybe 2, and the sad thing is I think they both belong to Kevin Sumlin.
Wow, you got to go that far back?
Johnny Manziel.
Yeah. All right.
I'm pretty sure that's yeah. I mean, and look, Texas 8-4, they actually run the risk of being Texas 7-5 this season, so you never know.
Oh my God. Okay. Cincinnati, number 24 in the country, plays South Florida. Cincinnati, a 27.5-point favorite. Oklahoma State, number 7 in the country, playing Texas Tech, and dare I say Oklahoma State, although playing very well and then have been on a consistent basis playing very well, while Mike Gundy's been the head coach over there, they may have a fight on their hands against Texas Tech.
They're going to have a fight on their hands, but Gundy is a hell of a coach, and I think he's one of the longest tenured Power 5 coaches active right now, and that's not for no reason. The guy can coach, and he's built a program and a culture over there in Stillwater. I like Oklahoma State. Never really had much ill will toward the program to begin with, and very recently we had the anniversary of the "Come after me, I'm a man,
Right.
I'm 40"
Right.
Press conference. I'm a Mike Gundy fan. Give me the Pokes.
I like Mike Gundy as well. Here's one, and just bear with me on this one. UCLA at 5-0, ranked number 18 in the country, hosting Utah. Now, we talked earlier about Auburn's situation with Brian Harsin. Here's a situation in Westwood where Chip Kelly could have been on his way out, but they've given him time. And right now, he's got UCLA playing the best that they have played since he's been the head coach there at UCLA, and they're only a 3.5-point underdog against Utah.
And I agree with you. This is Chip Kelly's best UCLA team in his time there. They're dangerous on offense. They're explosive, but you said they're an underdog.
Yeah.
Well, Utah is the reigning Pac-12 champ. You got that. I mean, there's a lot of guys left on that roster that were on that team last season. Utah, other than the Florida game, which that was a fight too. Like Florida very easily could have lost that game in Gainesville week 1. Utah's talented. Just because of my disdain for any and all football that takes place in the city of Los Angeles, I'm going to take the Utes.
I like UCLA in this situation.
I mean,
I really do.
UCLA
I mean, Chip
won.
Kelly has got UCLA playing the best, like I said, the best that they've played. They got a great quarterback that is playing very well. And it seems like that team has bought in to what Chip Kelly is doing there, despite the lack of fans in the Rose Bowl. I still think UCLA. I like UCLA in the upset here.
Well, that's a good pick.
Over under there 64.5.
Ooh, I'd take the over easily.
The team that UCLA beat, the Washington Huskies, come in this week at number 21. They go on the road to Tempe to take on Arizona State. And you want to talk about staging a coup to get their head coach fired? It actually worked at Arizona State.
Yeah, it did. The Sun Devils do not look good. They haven't in a couple seasons. And Washington, if I remember correctly earlier this season, put an absolute shellacking on Michigan State in Seattle, which was a sight to behold.
39-28 in week 3 for Washington.
And it didn't feel that close. But no, I like the Huskies in that one. Just Arizona State's got so much going on right now. That's not an ideal situation.
Speaking of Michigan State, do they cover the 27-point spread at home in East Lansing against the Buckeyes?
I'm gonna go with no.
Okay. Did you see?
Ohio State's just an entirely different animal. I mean, they really are.
Did you see where Ohio State faked a punt up 39 points on Rutgers last week?
I didn't. I mean, damn, Ryan Day.
They're up 49.
What vendetta do you have against Rutgers?
Okay, so here's the deal on that one. So Ohio State's up 49-10. They fake a punt. And whoever had the ball that was running down the sideline to gain the first down steps out of bounds. I think it was the punter. He steps out of bounds and gets leveled by a Rutgers, either the defender or the returner. And they threw a flag on the Rutgers guy, on the Rutgers defender.
Yeah,
Rightly
late hit
so.
out of bounds.
Letter of the law, late hit. I mean, it was egregious. Letter of the law, I get it. But I don't blame them for doing it when they're going to run a fake punt on you up 40. And it caused Greg Schiano, who's in his second stint as head coach of Rutgers, to come all the way across the field and confront Ryan Day. And those two almost came to blows. Now, I spoke earlier about putting a wrestling ring in the middle of the field at Bryant-Denny in Tuscaloosa. After this season is over, they should put a wrestling ring somewhere between Columbus and New Jersey and have those two fight in a cage.
Yeah, I think my money would be on Ryan Day. Ryan Day looks like one of those people that if just the tiniest little inconvenience happened to him during the day, he'd become unhinged. He just has one of those faces.
However, Greg Schiano is built like a brick house. I'm just saying that one might be closer than the experts think. Okay.
Well, how old is Greg Schiano, though?
I know. I don't know, but he's built like a house. I mean, really. Those two were actually on Urban's staff before Urban left, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they were. Schiano was an assistant at Ohio State before he went back to Rutgers. Okay. USC has become Oklahoma West with Caleb Williams at quarterback and Lincoln Riley as head coach. They're a 13.5-point favorite against Washington State in the Coliseum.
Repeat that for me one time. I got sidetracked by a little thing.
Okay. So USC has become Oklahoma West between Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams leading that offense. They're a 13.5-point favorite in the Coliseum against Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, USC, I think, is going to go untested or go pretty much uncontested, until they get to Utah and UCLA. I think those are the only two teams that can actually put a dent in the Trojan season so far. I mean, give me UCLA. Lincoln Riley seems to have found some life over there in Los Angeles. I guess he really, really hated Norman, Oklahoma. But their defense has forced something ungodly, almost 20 turnovers on the season, I believe already.
Yeah.
So it's like that. I mean, it seems like he moved to the West Coast and discovered the defensive side of football, which is funny.
Yeah. They better be careful, though. This could be the proverbial trap game. You mentioned Utah. The Trojans get Utah next week in Salt Lake City.
Got to be careful about that look-ahead game. It bit Kansas State in the butt a couple weeks ago, playing too late and before Oklahoma.
Right. Okay, here we go. Mormons versus Catholics in Las Vegas. BYU against Notre Dame.
I'm going to take
BYU. The Mormons aren't going to be out gambling or drinking, so the Las Vegas is going to be taken over by the Catholics.
I mean, Vegas might get taken over by the Mormons who just want to take pictures of everything to say they were there. They don't have to consume or play. The Mormons are going to be more touristy than actually gambling.
Notre Dame is a 3.5-point favorite here against the number 16 ranked Cougars.
I would take BYU. Marcus Freeman doesn't have it quite figured out in South Bend yet. When you lose and when you just get fully outclassed in your own stadium by Marshall, you've got deeper problems than just being a first-year head coach. I think, and I like Marcus Freeman. I do. I don't know if he's the answer long-term in South Bend, but Notre Dame has some growing pains to go through, and I think one of them is going to end up being BYU.
Okay, so they beat Cal and North Carolina their last two football games. They had the week off last week. They got the game against BYU on Saturday, and then after that, Stanford, UNLV, and Syracuse. So if they get past BYU...
And Syracuse is undefeated right now, aren't they?
Right. So if they get past BYU, they have two potential wins against Stanford and UNLV to set up an interesting matchup against the Orange up in the Carrier Dome.
No, that's a funny place to play. LSU went up there in 2015, and it's a funky venue for sure.
Certainly is. Talking about Kansas State earlier, they are the number 20 ranked team in the country. They have to go to Ames to take on Iowa State, who is seemingly hurting after losing to the Jayhawks on a missed field goal last week.
Oof, man, that's not a fun way to lose a football game.
And 14-11 was
Um,
the final against Kansas, by the way.
dude, that's a baseball score. I mean, that's a we don't know how to pitch baseball score is what that is. Um, I man, that's a tough one. I mean, when
It's
you lose a game like that, like the way Iowa State did, just trying to come back and regroup the following week. Yeah, that's rough.
Kansas State is a point and a half favorite on the road with the over/under being 45.
I I like Kansas State. I mean, just when you look at how that team played against Oklahoma, and when they set their mind to playing dominant football, they do.
Right.
Um, yeah, I would very easily take Kansas State in that game, and the over/under is at 45.
Yeah.
I take the over.
Okay. The number 5 ranked Clemson Tigers and quarterback DJ Uungalale go up to Chestnut Hill to take on Boston College.
Man, I never know how to feel about Clemson. Clemson is like A&M to me in the sense that when Clemson doesn't do well or when Clemson fails or loses a game, it just brings me so much joy because I cannot stand either Dabo or just Clemson, the program in general. Um, but I mean, at the same time, they're playing Boston College. That's not going to be an incredible test for Clemson, especially now that it seems DJ has gotten the quarterback situation figured out and seems like he knows how to play the position now. Because I mean, he looked pretty awful early on in the season, but he's grown into it a little bit more. I mean, I don't see Clemson losing the game, barring a Boston College miracle.
Yeah, I like Clemson. I mean, a 20.5 point road favorite.
I don't think they cover, but I think they win the game.
I like the Tigers there. Wake Forest will host Army this weekend, where Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons, 17-point favorite against the Black Knights.
You know, it feels unpatriotic and also kind of feels like a sacrilege to pick against or root against any of the service academies.
Right.
So give me the Black Knights of Army.
Why not? Why not?
Exactly. Why not?
Two more games to go through here. Top 25 action. North Carolina State Wolfpack suffered their first loss of the year last week when they lost to Clemson. They're looking to bounce back against Florida State.
Did Florida State finally lost the game, huh?
They did. They lost to Wake Forest.
Yeah, my brain is tailing off here, Paul.
It is late. It is late tonight.
I mean, it's later than this dad usually stays up. I'll tell you that much. No, I think Florida State and who again?
North Carolina State.
I mean, NC State losing last week. I believe it was 30-20 to Clemson. And it being a 10-point loss, from what I remember of watching some of the game, it really wasn't that close. Like the scoreboard wasn't really an indication of how the game actually went. I mean, I'm very clearly not picking Florida State because I don't want to cuss too much on your show. Screw them. I mean, I've never had anything against North Carolina State either. I like the Wolfpack. I mean, they played a good game against Clemson. It was just Clemson's just one of those teams that can just out talent you everywhere, and that's essentially what happened.
And then finally, Pac-12 after dark. The number 12 ranked Oregon Ducks travel to Tucson to take on Arizona. Oregon is a 13.5-point favorite. Arizona 3-2, not playing terrible football, but they are not in the upper echelon of the Pac-12. I like Oregon here. They're getting things. They seem to have gotten it together since getting lambasted by Georgia. And Bo Nix is not playing bad.
Which is a very weird thing to hear someone say, because when you think of Bo Nix, you think of erratic quarterback behavior and inconsistent play. But I mean, it's really crazy the fact that they really took their lumps week one against Georgia, and they've looked better every single week moving forward since that game. I'll take the Ducks.
Look, they had the upset win against BYU. They beat Washington State in a shootout. They took care of Stanford. They put up 70 against Eastern Washington, that's just taking care of business there. Yeah, I like the Ducks here too. Then after Arizona, look out. This could be the proverbial trap game here. If they're not careful, they get UCLA next week in Eugene. So if you're Oregon, you got to be careful here. Take care of business this week and then put your focus on UCLA. I'm sorry, I said they get UCLA next week. Next week, it's Oregon has a bye, and then they get UCLA on the 22nd.
I don't particularly think teams are really good at looking 2 weeks ahead into trap game territory. So I think they take care of the business at Arizona this weekend without much fanfare or trouble.
Right.
But then that game in 2 weeks against UCLA is a bigger one circled on that schedule.
Right. Okay. We're going to end it right here. But before we do, Chris, any final thoughts about anything in the sports realm that's got you frustrated, happy, whatever the case may be?
Well, I'm gonna hit you with twofold. One is a sad topic, and the other one is something that makes me happy. The regular season in the National Hockey League starts up very soon. I believe it's either this week or next week is when the puck drops for real, and then that way we get treated to 82 games of a fantastic, criminally underrated sports league. I mean, you know how much I love hockey, and it's about to be that time of year again. And the sad end of the spectrum this evening is the fact that we're going into week 6 of college football. Week 6 has technically already started. We had a game last night. I believe UCF played on Wednesday night. We are already halfway through the beloved college football season, and it feels like it just started.
I know, right?
It always seems to go that way, to where it feels like, hey, man, yeah, so, we get so hyped for college football. You go through your media days, and then the games start playing, and then once you're swept up in it and all the pageantry and the fun and the tradition and everything, and you look up and it's week 6, 7, 8, and it's November, and you're like, where did the season go?
Right. No, that's how I feel about whenever I get to watch the NCAA men's basketball tournament. You start off on a Thursday, 16 games on a Thursday, 16 more games on a Friday, and then by the end of the first weekend of the tournament, you go from 64 down to 16. I mean, just in a blink of an eye like that. And that's how I feel. March Madness is one of those deals where you get hyped up for it. You get excited for it. You're channel surfing, watching games, and then you get to that second weekend, and you're like, well, now this is it. This is what we have left.
Right.
I get that way.
I
Couple
always
things.
admired the efficiency of the NCAA, the men's basketball tournament.
Yeah.
And just how efficiently and quickly it goes. Because when you think about other NCAA tournaments, particularly the baseball tournament, and I understand it's best out of it's best of 5 series and stuff like that, and you got to win 3 games and all this kind of stuff, and it's double elimination. But I mean, the baseball tournament seems to drag on pre-Omaha. Omaha's fun and it's magical and it's great, but like up until the games at TD Ameritrade, it's kind of like, man, we're still doing this.
Yeah.
Like we haven't gotten to the Supers yet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Look, couple things here. It felt like forever, but finally Aaron Judge hit number 62 on Tuesday.
He did. Congrats to him, and I know the Roger Maris family, the Maris family, is happy that Aaron Judge finally did it. and I see a lot of people who are debating who the home run king actually is between Aaron Judge and Barry Bonds. I'll say this: Judge did it clean.
At least as far as we know.
As far
Um,
as we know, but with the way baseball is with testing and everything like that now,
yeah.
if he wasn't, then
Oh,
damn,
absolutely.
the Yankees were as good at hiding it as the Astros were hiding their pitch calling scheme.
No, absolutely. But look, now I said it on the program on Tuesday. Now we don't have to have ESPN cut in on a college football game to show Aaron Judge either strike out or get walked.
My thoughts exactly, man. Like I couldn't tell you how aggravating it was. There was a moment I believe watching the Ole Miss Kentucky game
Yeah,
on Saturday,
and
and
yeah, it was
I'm sitting there watching, and then they cut over to the Yes Network, and it was the first at bat, Aaron Judge leading off, and he took
I think he got
two
walked.
high pitches, and then he got hit by the third pitch.
Oh,
He,
yeah,
he took two up high, and the other one came in and caught him on his elbow. And I remember the crowd at Yankee Stadium not really appreciating that all that much, which I get.
yeah.
But I mean, quit interrupting my college football for that.
Absolutely. The other thing too, and this is where I wanted to get you on the program on Tuesday, and we'll wrap it up on this.
Okay.
You and I were texting back and forth during the Sunday morning Saints Vikings game from London.
Oh Jesus, I'm afraid of where this is going already.
And we talked about how bad the officiating was in that football game. But I'll put it to you like this: whether or not the Saints deserved the 10 penalties for 102 yards, the Saints still have clear issues with penalties and turnovers. Now, with that being said, I saw a lot of positive with Andy Dalton at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints didn't quit. They fought like hell to get back into that football game, had a chance to win at the end, and then the double doink happened. But as you said, it should have never come down to that. And I agree. I agree. Hold on. Let me finish here real quick. And this is the same. It's almost on the same discussion about the LSU defense. The defense can only do so much. But if the Saints continue to go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, they're not giving their defense time to rest up to get back out onto the field. It's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned up from the Saints. And at 1-3, I hope and I pray that this is a bounce back game for them this week against Seattle. But if they don't clean up the penalties, whether they're warranted or not, and they don't clean up the turnovers, this is not good for New Orleans right now.
No, and it's not just the penalties and the turnovers and those things. There are also just fundamental, like football fundamental issues going on the defensive side of the ball as well. I don't. I'm not calling him out, but I did notice this particularly two people in the Saints secondary. One, God knows I love Tyrann Mathieu. The dude's awesome. He's a Louisiana football legend, and one day will go into Canton as a Hall of Famer. But I don't think I've ever seen him. He probably hasn't missed this many open field tackles probably since he's been at St. Aug. It's like he's either scared to hit people or he's forgotten how to actually tackle players in the open field. He had a handful of missed tackles Sunday against the Vikings. He had a few. He had one against the Panthers on that long the screenplay that went 80-something yards for the touchdown. He missed a tackle there, and it's just other than the interception on Sunday in London, I can't even imagine I can't see the impact that he has had on the defensive side of the ball, and that it really hurts considering the type of player and leader and person that I know that he is. The other person, and this is more of just a disappointment thing, but Marshawn Lattimore, his claim to fame has been shutting down Mike Evans, which is great. But Marshawn Lattimore acts like Mike Evans is the only receiver in the league that he needs to lock down. Justin Jefferson made Marshawn Lattimore look foolish on Sunday. And part of that gives me a little bit of satisfaction, a little bit of pride, because Justin Jefferson is an LSU guy. He's a hell of a receiver, and he's come a long way from being a 2-star recruit all the way to one of the best receivers in the NFL. But Marshawn Lattimore, you want to be that guy. You got a contract extension. You want to be one of the best corners in the league. You can't be selective with who you play really good defense against. Like, yeah, you played great against Mike Evans week 2 against the Bucks, but that can't be where the good play ends. You can't be an elite corner only when Mike Evans is on the field. You have to do it week in and week out against other teams' number 1 wide receivers. And I mean, it baffles me how crazy, just how bad Justin Jefferson made Marshawn Lattimore look on Sunday, and it's baffling to me. Right. But I mean, and it's crazy. I mean, you want to talk about the offense and all that kind of stuff, and you and I were saying the offense is too vanilla. It is what it is. I mean, look, I don't think, going back to the head coaching interview process, I wish we had retained Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator. Right now, at least how it appears to me, having zero insight into the coaching search when it was going on, not hiring Eric Bieniemy as your head coach, it looks like it's biting you in the ass right now, because you need an offensive-minded head coach down here with the defense that Dennis Allen has. And I don't think Pete Carmichael solely calling plays is doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, I think with Pete Carmichael, in all respect to him, he's got probably the toughest job in the NFL when you're taking over the play calling from an offensive mastermind that was Sean Payton. It's not an easy job, but
it's not. But I mean, I know we all had higher expectations than this.
Oh, absolutely. But we could tell the difference in play calling between Sean Payton and Pete Carmichael. And it's not like Pete Carmichael doesn't have the weapons. I mean, you just got Michael Thomas back. Well, now he was out last week. He may be out again this week against Seattle. You're going to get Alvin Kamara back this week. Andy Dalton is probably going to be your starter this week with Jameis still out. It's not like you have nobody on offense, but you are the offensive coordinator, and you got to be able to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think at the times that he was aggressive in the game against Minnesota on Sunday, it was too little too late at the time. I mean, you need to be aggressive for 4 quarters. We just weren't that. The offensive line is like Swiss cheese. Which
came out of nowhere, too.
Right. They're not giving the quarterback time, whether it's Jameis or Andy Dalton. There's a lot to be cleaned up. And, these players are going to say, look, it's the little things, it's the little things, it's the little things. Yeah, but these little things can eventually snowball to become big problems. And through 4 games is enough time during the course of the season for teams to look at tendencies. And right now the tendency on this New Orleans Saints offense is they have trouble throwing the football until it's garbage time. The offensive line is atrocious, and without Alvin Kamara, they can't run the football. I'm afraid to see what Pete Carroll's going to do. Pete Carroll with the defensive mind, what he's going to do against the Saints on Sunday in the Dome. Saints are a 5.5-point favorite, but I think that's a little generous right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, thankfully, and I think you and we can say this confidently, but thankfully, Pete Carroll isn't showing up in New Orleans on Sunday with the Legion of Boom.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of things that the Saints need to improve on, and if they want to be able to salvage the season, I mean, look, you can, as bad as the NFC South is, the absolute floor should be win the division, and that's the absolute floor for what should be for this team. You can win the NFC South, go to the playoffs in Dennis Allen's first year, and say, look, there were some things that we didn't do great, but there are some things that we did well and well enough in other areas for us to make the playoffs, and we can build on that in year 2. The problem with that is One, if you go into the offseason having made the playoffs and then have an early exit either in the wild card round or whatever, then you're right back where you were when it was Sean Payton and the end of the Drew Brees era. You're right back in that same spot. And then now you have the questions of re-signing guys to keep the roster whole, because once again, going into next offseason, you're going to have the same salary cap issues that we've been having for the past 3, 4, 5 seasons. Jarvis Landry signed a 1-year deal. Other veteran guys, what are you gonna do? You're gonna try and renegotiate with a bunch of these guys? You're gonna let them walk and then put a pedestrian football team out on the field next year.
Mickey Loomis is gonna have to be careful here. It's not a good situation right now in New Orleans, but winning cures all, and unless that starts to happen here soon, it's going to be a very, very frustrating season in New Orleans.
I mean, it's been a frustrating season now, and the sad thing is we're 4 games in. You got 13 more games to go, and
Right.
you know, it's just it's crazy the way that where we thought this team would look in the preseason and then going into the regular season to where we actually are now. Like, you know, you were able to squeak out a win against Atlanta in the final minutes and you block the kick that won the game. But after that, you've looked like absolute dog ass against everybody you played. And it seems you should have beaten.
Right.
Like, you had no business losing to Tampa in week 2. The defense kept you in it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Andy Dalton definitively would have won that game against Tampa, but I also don't have enough evidence to sit here and say that to say that he wouldn't have helped either.
Right. Oh no, he would have definitely given you a chance.
I completely agree. I mean, and this is also just my opinion, and I don't understand what the coaching staff so far has been thinking. But you have a quarterback that has 4 fractures in his spine. Like, the man literally has fractures in his spine, one of which is low enough in the that's. I'm not even going to pretend to know which vertebrae that Jameis actually has broken, but I know one of them is low enough to where it's one of the ones that dictates like hip motion and hip movement.
Yeah.
And as a quarterback, you need your hips to throw the ball deep, especially accurately and with power on your throw.
Right, and that's the reason for the hip problem. And you know they're going to the coaches are telling us, that Jameis is telling us, well, yeah, I got 4 fractures in my back, but the doctors don't believe it's going to be any worse. Dude, you got fractures in your back. One wrong hit and you could potentially be paralyzed. I don't care what the doctors say. It's a dangerous situation to put your QB1 out there. You got to get healed up. I'm sorry, he has to get healed up.
I completely agree.
And Andy Dalton is more than capable to leading this football team because he has had that starting quarterback experience when he was at Cincinnati, and he started at times in Dallas and everywhere else that he's been. He has all the potential in the world to lead this football team. So,
right.
So it is what it is. And he was, if you look at his stats outside the fumble, he was efficient against Minnesota. All right, he was efficient against Minnesota, so that can only give us hope offensively. And the Saints are more of a West Coast style offense, a variation of the West Coast style offense, where it fits right into Andy Dalton's wheelhouse. So, with his skill set, so this is the perfect situation for Andy Dalton to redeem his career here. And if this ends up working out to where he can lead this team back into a playoff contention towards the latter part of the year, they continue to go with Andy Dalton while Jameis heals up, because you don't want to see the man paralyzed. At this point, it's all about Jameis's health rather than his career.
I get that. I agree with you 100%. And also, too, if you want to segue into a different topic, but in the same vein of letting a guy, especially a QB1, get healthy before you put him back on the football field, I got to ask this question. What the fuck was Miami thinking with Tua from the Buffalo game and then having him out again against Cincinnati, out there taking hits when clearly I mean, I'm not a neurologist. I am not a neurosurgeon. I was barely even a football player. I've had a concussion playing hockey. They're not fun.
Look,
But when you see a dude get hit the way he did with his head, the back of his head hit the ground, and when he stands up and almost falls to no for no other reason other than he just took a giant whack to the head. There is no reason for him to still be in that football game. And there was zero reason for him to be playing against Cincinnati the following week when he had to get carted off.
Totally irresponsible by the medical staff of the Miami Dolphins. Totally irresponsible by the head football coach of the Miami Dolphins. The Players Association had to fire an unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant because of this. There is a total disconnect within the medical offices in the Miami in Davie, Florida, at the Miami Dolphins facility. I blame the head coach for allowing Tua to go out there and even try to play against Cincinnati last Thursday. This is as much on Mike McDaniel as it is on the medical personnel in that building. And if anything, this is also on Tua for thinking he could go out there and play. So No. You can't totally blame Tua for this, but Tua had to have some say.
I can't put any blame on Tua because when you're a competitor at the highest level of your sport, and you want to be out there, one, to help your team win, but two, you want to be out there because and also too, if you want to shallow this conversation a little bit, the longer you're not out there, the longer you go without being paid. And it's money is a thing to these guys, and I get it. But at the same time, as a competitor, I can't put that on Tua for being like, hey, no, coach, I'm good. Like, let me go out there. Like, I got this. I can do this. That's when a competent head coach and a head coach with a spine sits there and says, Tua, I need you in one piece for later in this season. You missing 1 week and the rest of this game and possibly next week is not going to ruin our season. Trust me that I have what's best for you in my head. You need to heal up and not have a concussion before we put you on the football field again.
Yeah.
And some of the most blame that I want to put on this is on the Dolphins head coach. It is on the Miami Dolphins medical staff. But also, I'm putting this on the Shield because since Bountygate, your whole mantra has been player safety. We are all about player safety. Player safety first. We want to improve the game and the integrity of the game. We want the game to be safer for the guys that play it. And all of this bullshit. No, none of that is a priority to you. You only care about the optics, and even then, the optics of your league, Commissioner Goodell, still suck.
Look,
there is zero reason that even if the NFLPA had said, yeah, the injury review or the concussion protocol review or whatever that they did that concluded Tua could go play the following week, even if that all came back correct, the way it looked against the Bills at the end of the game, when Tua literally had to have offensive linemen hold him up, like that's not a good look. And the league should have stepped in and said, hey, look, we are about player safety. We want to make sure these guys live long and fulfilling lives. Tua cannot play next week. He needs to heal.
Look, at some point, you're right. You got to put player safety above being out there and playing. Again,
that's what the league claims to do,
but you see,
time and time again, they've proved this wrong.
But look, protecting the shield is not just player safety. It's handing down correct punishments. Deshaun Watson's punishment of 11 games, not the correct punishment. Bountygate, how that went down, it was mishandled. The NFL discipline office. Look, the NFL discipline office, if you want to call it a discipline office, is as inconsistent as the NCAA is. Protecting the shield is a mantra, but at this point, it's just optics. It's crap. It has no meaning anymore. Somebody needs to step up and say, we're not protecting the shield. Somebody needs to have the guts to stand in front of the commissioner whomever the commissioner is, whether it's Goodell, somebody else in the future, whomever, and say, we are not doing right by our players. We are not doing right by our fans. We need a thorough review of the entire league from top to bottom, including the officials, including front offices of all 32 teams, because the league right now, in my opinion, is in disarray. And it's from top to bottom.
Between the irregular disciplinary action, like you said, the irregular and inconsistent disciplinary action for certain teams and players and franchises and everything like that, that's gotta get put under sharp relief. The fact that you can have an owner literally essentially either bribe or pay off a coach for losing to complete a tank to get a draft pick or to get draft picks, that affects the integrity of the game. You're all about that too, but they did nothing on that end. The whole thing with Brian Flores and how Miami just up and fired him for no reason after making the playoffs and winning 8 straight games to make the playoffs. They fire him for no reason and then hire what's their
Mike
current
McDaniel?
coach? Yeah, they hire Mike McDaniel, who claims to be a minority. When I'm not gonna lie, he looks like a white dude that got dipped in tea. Like that. There's no the Rooney Rule is a horrendously enforced.
Optics.
Yeah, but if you're gonna do that, then you need, like, here's my thing. One, I'm all for equality. I'm all for everybody getting an opportunity to be able to have the job that they feel they deserve based on qualifications. When you sit there and you make a rule that says you have to interview at least one minority candidate, all that says is you're interviewing them based on their ethnicity, not their successes, not their qualifications, not anything else. You could have the most accomplished minority coach come up in there, and from minute one, you know they're not getting the job, or there could be the air of they're not getting the job. Doesn't matter how qualified they are. We're just interviewing you because we have to. Is the only reason that they're there, and that's bullshit.
Look, I understand the Rooney Rule. I don't agree with the Rooney Rule because if
I don't either.
Because, like you said, if a team is just it has a head coaching opening, and you're just going to interview a minority candidate, knowing full well you're not going to hire them, then what the hell is the point of the Rooney Rule? I don't understand.
Exactly. It's absurd, and I think the league needs to very, very, very. There needs to be an independent third party that is not touched by the NFL, that cannot be swayed by the NFL into thinking a particular way, and they need to, when I tell you, go down to the studs of what holds the NFL up, because you're gonna find some shit in there. You really truly are. And I think the favoritism towards certain franchises in bigger markets and in certain franchises that are owned by certain people has to stop.
Look,
and I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah, look,
absolutely absurd.
Look, few things here, and then we really have to wrap this up. I mean, look, I'm all for the conversation. I love it. I really do.
Same.
Few things here. The NFL is in disarray. The NBA, look, you try to give Adam Silver the best credit you possibly could give him, but when LeBron James is really running the league and not Adam Silver, that's a problem.
You know, the inmates are running the asylum
Major
in the NBA as well.
Major League Baseball is a laughing stock with Rob Manfred as commissioner. The NHL has its own sets of controversies, but they do a great job of handling them. So in my opinion, the best run league of all the four major professional sports in this country is the National Hockey League. It's the best run league in the country right now. It really is.
You would really, 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 really actually be there are a lot of hockey purists that would not be happy with what you just said, because Gary Bettman is a spineless he's a spineless commissioner as well. And if you want to look into how and why, one, you can look into the fact that they have left the Phoenix Coyotes or the Arizona Coyotes. I don't know what they're called now. That whole franchise has been absolutely left to hang out and dry in the desert. They don't have the team doesn't have an arena because Tempe and wherever else they were, I think Scottsdale was where they were playing before. Neither city wanted to build them an arena, so the NHL offered zero assistance to the franchise. They are now an NHL franchise is playing its what's up?
They're owned by the league.
Yeah, an NHL franchise is playing its home games in the 5,000 seat arena that the Arizona State Sun Devils play their ice hockey in.
Jesus.
Think about that. There's that.
Okay.
The fact that the league expanded and pushed through an expansion team in Seattle, making an odd number of teams in the league now. I think there's either 31 or 33 teams in the league now. So that creates an imbalance there. And if you want to get really into the dark shit, look up during the Chicago Blackhawks dynasty, I believe of between 2013 and 2016, of the amount of sexual assault and in-house issues that the league helped cover because the Blackhawks were winning that was going on within the Blackhawks organization.
Okay, I retract what I just said about Gary Bettman. Okay,
I didn't mean to be that guy,
Yeah.
but I was about to be like, I mean, none of the major sports leagues. Maybe the MLS is the best run league.
Yeah,
right
but who
now.
really cares about MLS right now? I mean, really.
Fair point.
No disrespect to soccer, but
No
I
disrespect
digress.
to football.
all right. It is 9:43 in the Central Time Zone in New Orleans. This has been Cigar and a Beverage. I want to thank Chris Gerard for joining me here tonight. Oh, Chris, when I try to voice call you, when I tell Siri to call you, with this new iOS update, it says Gerarvi.
Well, that's not the worst mispronunciation I've ever heard.
Anyway, I want to thank you for joining me tonight, Chris. I know you came on a little bit late because you had to put your little one down. It's all good. It's all gravy. As always, you can follow us on TikTok at CigarBevNola. That's at CigarBevNola. And you can always Venmo me at Paul-Wonder-1. All proceeds Venmoed to that account will go directly back into the production of this program. And as always, grab your favorite cigar, grab your favorite beverage, sit back, relax, join in on the conversation like Chris did each and every time that we're on. And I love to hear from you all on the latest sports topics. Chris, I will see you tomorrow evening as we get ready to head to Baton Rouge Saturday morning. And
Bright and early.
Bright and early, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Saturday morning in Baton Rouge on a Louisiana Saturday morning.
Yes.
Where the humidity is supposed to be low, which is so not Louisiana at this time of year, but I'll take it.
If it feels like fall, I'm not going to complain about it. But I would have preferred a night game. But I mean, look, it's LSU football. It's Tiger Stadium. It's a top 25 matchup, and it's a conference game. Anybody going to the game, grab your favorite morning cocktail, get into the stadium early, and be ready to scream your face off.
Look, I'll have my spiked coffee in the morning. I know people will probably have their Bloody Marys, mimosas, and whatnot. And we're gonna
confirmed there will be mimosas at the tailgate, so we'll be all good.
We're gonna have some fun Saturday morning. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on the air next week for more sports recaps and previews. And if you could join us, always remember, click the Zoom link on the post. Thank you, everybody, and good night. Chris, thank you.
Thank you, bud.